Hey Anant, firstly, congratulations on scoring an amazing 750. Does it feel like a dream come true?
It does. And before I answer anything, thank you so much for, I'll be talking more about how you have helped me, but at the very outset, I would like to thank you for the tireless efforts which you've been putting in the last few days. It's been amazing. I feel that, I've achieved what I had targeted for sure. So it's definitely very fulfilling.
You've started the new year the right way. It's a truly happy new year for you. With a Q49 and a V44. Again, getting a V44 is an achievement in itself, and obviously, Quant has done its part as well. So, tell me, once you saw the score, once you finished giving the exam, saw the score, what was the feeling like?
So actually, verbal has been my Achilles heel. Verbal is something which I was very underconfident with. Even the first time when I gave GMAT in November 2020, I wasn't sure, even after doing the entire verbal section, if I've done good or bad. And that was mostly because I felt like, I've guessed on a few points, and I sort of had noticed patterns with sentence correction, let's say. I used to start with pronoun errors, which I later found out is not the best thing to do. A very big difference was, in my first attempt, I don't think in any question I applied the basically what you guys call the meaning based approach. It's very simple actually, that you have to find out the meaning, and only then you can cross a certain threshold. Without the meaning based approach, you can definitely score somewhere around 650, 660, 670. But if you want to cross that threshold, you need to understand the meaning of every sentence, and that's something which I was very unsure of the first time. And when I gave it now, when I got the V44 mark, I was sure with almost every question that I at least understood the meaning. And at max to max, it was like that I was stuck between two very close choices, but I had good reasons to reject one. It wasn't so difficult to navigate through the entire section. And even the subsection in which I got the lowest marks in, as in the lowest percentile in my first attempt, which was RC. This time I bugged up and I made sure that the specific weak area which I have in RC, which is social sciences. For a passage on social sciences, I will not take any word for granted. I will try to understand the entire meaning of every passage. So I think, keeping all of those things in mind, I was aiming somewhere around 40 to 42 in my verbal, and I would have been satisfied at 40, at 42, because I had lost confidence after the first time. I was like, maybe I'm not that good. Maybe I lack some skills which are required for this. And then when I got a V44, I was very very happy. And then I felt confident about one fact, that okay, the meaning based approach, the new approach which I'm applying for every question, which includes meaning based approach. There are a lot of other things which I did this time too, but all of those things were actually correct. And that's a very big factor for any student always doubts himself or herself at every moment of preparation, if what they're doing is correct or not. So when I saw the score, I was like, okay, things have been done correctly, and I'm very happy about it.
Yeah, I mean, clearly, I mean, V44 shows that you've done pretty much everything correctly, right? And we're going to get more context into where you started off your GMAT journey and what your verbal score was before in your first attempt, and we'll get to that as well. But I want to touch upon 2 points here. First, the threshold of SC. Now, for anybody who's ever given a GMAT, when they tell me that I got stuck between two options, I found the options too ambiguous in the beginning, and I couldn't figure out what the answer was. The only way you're ever going to figure that out is through the meaning-based approach. I mean, and I think you can really
Absolutely.
verify that too. The
I can
second
vouch for
piece
this.
here is you
Yeah.
understanding. that you had issues in RC in those particular areas, right? Even when I'm assuming those books behind you, do you read a lot? Are those
Yeah, in
yours?
fact, these are all GMAT books, Manhattan,
And
OG, and all of these books.
okay. And
And
what about
yeah,
the
these
ones on
these
the
are all
right?
fiction and business books.
Right. So you do read
Yeah, these
a
are
fair
fiction
amount, right?
and yeah,
So
yeah, you
is
can say.
a lot of people feel say
Actually,
that I read a
honestly,
lot.
I started, yeah, honestly, I started reading more in the last 1 year because I knew I that I have to improve on RC a lot, and that and not just RC on the entire verbal section you need to have a good reading habit, and that's why I started picking up good books, good authors over the last 1 year. I would say that's me being very honest.
Yeah, I'm glad I don't see any Chetan Bhagat there. I'm just kidding. So I think that's fair that reading is a very very important and key component in really improving your verbal, right? And it's again you started this habit and I can see that it's obviously worked, right? So let's talk about your GMAT journey. When you gave the GMAT the first time, what was your verbal score and quant score then, and what did you do? What did you study then?
Okay, so my quant score was Q49, verbal was V31. And honestly, I was shocked to see the score. I had already put in, you can say, easily over 400 hours studying on my own. And see, the thing is that for a lot of things in life, you always have two options. One is to be self-sufficient and do everything on your own. That has another high, that has another, a feeling of satisfaction. And that was what I was aiming for at that time. I
Yeah, and that
purchased
does
the
work
official guide.
for a certain set of individuals. It's not like it doesn't work, and I'm sure you
Correct,
can
correct,
reaffirm to that, right?
correct, correct, correct. Exactly. And even I was following this because my sister used the same approach. She studied for 1 month, she got a 760. So I thought that I could do it. But we all have our own limitations. We all have differences which define how we fare out in things, right? So basically, the first time when I started doing this, I purchased the official guides. I was very active on GMAT Club in terms of checking questions of official guide, which I don't properly understand because everybody knows about this. That the explanation in the OG is not up for some questions. It's not up to the mark for
Yeah,
sure.
I
So
can
you
get
have to
confusing.
refer
I
to
mean, I
the
would be more confused after reading it than before
correct.
actually, seeing the solution.
Correct, correct, correct. And sometimes you might feel that it's contradictory also. It's possible, although it might be your own flaw to think that these are contradictory, but it's not so clear that it removes all contradictions in the mind of any average student. So I purchased the OG. I also purchased Manhattan guides. I went through the all the areas in which I was weak at when I first took a diagnostic test, diagnostic GMAT official test, in which I got a very bad score, which is 590, and it was nowhere near my target score, so that definitely raised alarms, and I thought that I should first start with quant because in quant there was scope for immediate improvement, and what I found out was that the weakest area which I had was sentence correction, and I almost got every question wrong in my first attempt, and
So
I
the
think
first, so the
that's
first thing
something
you
which
did was
happens
you
with
you
uh,
took a diagnostic,
mhm.
right? You just said, let me just hang on,
Yes,
let me take a diagnostic and figure out where my
correct,
weaknesses are. So I think that's again a very
correct,
key
correct,
point
correct.
that a lot of people should do, like you did, and like you mentioned,
Yes,
SC was a weakness very very clearly. And a smart thing that you did was
yeah.
you picked up quant where you said, I can absolutely bump up my improvement here immediately. It's extremely
Hmm.
fast. So I think
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
is very very smart in
Hmm.
doing that. So from 590 to what score then on the GMAT?
Yeah. So, and just to add one more thing, after I read about the weak areas in quant, my quant since that time has been the same. It has neither gone down or gone substantially up. It's more or less it was always around 49, and I was happy with that because I knew that there's a limitation. it felt so difficult from going to Q49 to Q50 that I felt like no, there are other areas. The opportunity cost of this is too high. So then I went and I practiced on verbal through OG, through Manhattan, through a lot of other guides as well. And then I gave a lot of mocks. I had taken expert globals 15 mock test series. I gave those,
Did you
and I
take those
also
because,
purchased all
so
the six.
quick question here. Did you take those because of the price point or
Yeah.
because they were actually very good?
Two reasons, and I'm telling this to you from a student's perspective. First was the price point. It seemed like, but that wasn't the primary factor. That can, for me, that cannot be the primary factor because quality also is always in our head when we buy things. I think I saw a post on Quora which had which had a chart of all the mock test series available, and there the on the on number two, just after GMAT Prep, was Experts Global, and a lot of people had upvoted it. And then I also searched about Experts Global on GMAT Club and a lot of other places,
So
and I
that
thought
seemed
it's a
credible
good
information
deal
to you.
for. Yes, yes, it seemed credible. It seemed like it was a good deal, affordable, because I and there was a huge difference actually. In the first time I was preparing, my entire strategy was around giving more and more mocks, as many mocks as possible. I was like, if I give X number of mocks, I will definitely get to a point where I achieve my target score. Right, so that's why I was purchasing mocks. I even purchased the GMAT official mocks, all the mocks. I gave all the mocks, and then in the last 10, 15 mocks, my score in all of them was around 720, 730 to 760. Even even in the official mocks, I scored about 740, 750, about 7 days, 10 days before the actual exam. But in the actual exam, and I had planned everything out, right? Right, starting from the dress rehearsal to what I'm going to eat in between. I searched, what amount of carbs, what amount of fats would be good for such a situation. Everything was planned, and I sat for the exam, and I went blank. That was the that was the biggest highlight of the exam. I went blank. I couldn't put two sentences together in RC. I was reading it, but I knew I couldn't understand it, and I wanted to smack myself on the head to just wake me up, right? And I just couldn't do it. And verbal went on, and I was possibly guessing most of the questions because I didn't know anything. It wasn't like I didn't know the concepts. I just went blank when the actual day came. I probably felt very underconfident with the concepts which I had learned, but I knew them, right? So I gave verbal, I gave quant. Quant was fairly easy in the first go. It was a cakewalk. IR was also superb, no issues there. AWA was also very good. So after I gave it and I received V31 and Q49, I was shocked. I went into a sudden burst of depression. I was like, how can I get this after so much preparation, uh, so much strategy, so much planning, and that's how I ended up planning to take another mock because that score was nowhere near my target score.
Yeah, let's talk about a few data points here. And that's a lot of information to take in, right? So 400 hours of study, that basically amounts to about 4.5, 5 months of work of just you doing everything that you can to really get the score. And then you end up with probably, I think, a 650 was the score, or
670.
670, right? And it hurt.
670.
It hurts real bad, right? And when you say you blanked out, yes, you definitely blanked out. But going into the exam, if you blank out, basically means you're very unsure of what the outcome will be, right? There's an intangible of that confidence level. I think that's something that is very, very important when you go into an exam. So highlighting a few things here. Mock strategy, buying so many mocks, experts global, official, Manhattan, whatever. Now that you've taken all of these mocks and you've taken Sigma X mocks, you've taken 3 of Sigma X mocks, which mocks do you think are the most accurate in really putting you into an exam environment and predicting your score?
Okay, so I think I'm being very honest here.
No bias here. No
For
bias here,
GMAT
please.
prep
Yeah.
official mocks, yeah, yeah. So for GMAT official prep mocks, I heard that they're the best, and the standard deviation would be somewhere around plus minus 40, and it's very rare that the range goes beyond that. But all of that did not work out for me. I was breezing through every GMAT official mock. It was very easy. It was definitely easier than the verbal on the test which I saw. And that being said, I honestly feel that it's not just the quality of the exam of the mock which matters. It's you being comfortable in the situation which you are giving your mocks in, right? Although I made sure that I'm in an exam environment that worked against me. Things like I didn't allow anyone to enter the room when I was giving the mock. This specific strategy actually hurt me because in the actual mock I was sitting in the booth where which was right next to the door. So I wasn't used to any of the real things which mattered. I was used to silence. Yes, that was something which I was used to, but
So you were too
that
well
was
prepared.
that could
I
have
mean,
helped on the actual day.
I've never heard this, but you were too well
Exactly. I was
prepared.
too yeah, so I made myself too comfortable in my home environment, right? By giving so many mocks, I did that. I'm now going to tell you which all mocks I given. I'm going to be brief about it. Princeton mocks, very easy. Uh, Good only if you're just starting out. If you want to get confidence, if you want to score, let's say 720, 740 in your first second attempt, go for Princeton mocks. Manhattan mocks, I've heard a lot about Manhattan mocks, and especially that their quant is very difficult. And that is precisely the reason I never took it. I did not want to get demoralized uh, because I knew that it's definitely above what is asked for. And I was like, no, I'm not doing this. I took Veritas mocks. Veritas mocks were fine, but the technical aspect of Veritas mocks is not that great. But ideally, you can give one or two Veritas free mocks if you want to. Then I gave GMAT Club official mocks, something which I remember you also had some thoughts about it, and I truly believe that GMAT Club mocks are again good for practice. Don't take them by heart. Don't think that this is what you will actually get. I'm talking about both types of scores: an inflated score or a score which is way below, right? So that's GMAT Club. Experts Global, I did get to learn a lot of concepts because their video explanations I found them very good. For every question, they had a video explanation of about a minute or two, which briefly explained what the point was. But there was a very deep issue with Experts Global, that their mocks got repetitive. I exactly knew that okay, in SC, a subjunctive question is going to come. It's going to test this thing. Okay, in this topic, pronoun topic, this is what they're looking for. I could predict their questions, in the upcoming mocks, the type of questions which they would pose. Even for RC, their questions are very tight. So if you've given the first few mocks, the last few don't really make sense for you to judge yourself where you're at,
Which is
right?
probably because there's so
Then
many
okay,
of
I
them, right?
think
There's like 15 of them. So I don't know how
correct.
many questions you can
It's
read out
15
of
of them.
15 mocks because I mean there's only a certain point to which you can
Mm-hmm.
learn. Yeah,
Cool.
carry on, please.
Yeah,
Continue.
correct. And yeah, and then I gave the Sigma X mocks. I loved the interface. Everything, right, starting from the analytics to the post mock advice which I used to bother you with, to help me out on analyzing the mock. That's very important actually. A lot of students, what they do is they get comfortable with the fact that okay, I've given the mock, my journey is my pain is over. But that's when your pain begins actually, because now you get to realize two things. One is the questions which you've done wrong, why are they wrong? And the second is also very important, which is often ignored. The questions which you've done right, have you made the right choice um deliberately, or do you actually not match the understanding which should be there? That's very important. You
So the
need to
why of
be
it, the
in a
why did I
stage
get a
where
question
you
wrong
can.
versus why
Yes,
did I get it right. Basically, it's just a
yes,
very, very
exactly, exactly.
strengthened strategic review of every single question that you got right and wrong. And I think people go wrong
Mm,
and they just kind
mm,
of review all the questions they got wrong. In fact, most people don't even do that. They give the mock and say, "Oh my God, I got a great score.
mm.
Let's move on, and let me give another mock." And
Even I, yeah, even I never did that, and I can understand the psyche of students. It's because you get you're like, okay, I've, I've made a correct choice. Why do I need to bother so much? But the but the biggest thing is you need to see if the other four options have anything new to offer to you. That's very important, right? So these two things. And one thing which I've been speaking to you about this regarding the sigma x mocks as well. The quant is something which I think you should not take by heart, whatever the sigma x mocks which I've given. Quant is something which I feel can be worked on to make them more representative of the actual level. I think they're slightly harder in terms of the time which questions generally require. If you see in OG or in other GMAT prep questions, the length of the questions, except for word problems, is not that much actually. It's
yeah,
generally this much, or maximum to maximum 10 15 words, and that's something which is good for practice, but that's something which I felt could be improved.
right. So that's
So
fair, and I
like
think,
that's my analysis of
and I
all of
would
the marks.
want to talk about this because I think that's a fair point to mention. And the beauty of this is, think about this, right, Anant? We wanted to create a mock that puts you in a situation that you've never seen before. That's exactly the point when you
Hmm.
go to your GMAT, you're
Hmm. Hmm.
obviously put in that position, right? So I would rather give you something slightly harder than something slightly easier
Hmm.
because you become
But yeah,
complacent
yeah,
if it's
I
the other way
understand.
around,
Hmm.
right? So I think
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
there
Hmm.
is value in that, but yeah, feedback taken about that. So I think we've discussed about a bunch of things now. I also wanted to talk about
Hmm.
the underachiever syndrome because a lot of students get this. My friend XYZ scored a 760, he did it this way. My friend scored a 750, he
Hmm.
just studied for 5 days. My friend, just studied for
Yeah.
16 days. He didn't even do anything. He just sat for the exam and he got a
Hmm.
760. Uh, I
Hmm.
genuinely believe that we should not, everybody has their own strengths and weaknesses, and they
Absolutely.
definitely should not make
Absolutely.
the same mistakes as all of us do make eventually. So let's talk about the course now, right? Let's talk about the verbal course and
And
talk about the quant.
just
Yeah.
yeah.
Now you
Yeah,
were saying
I
something.
just wanted to add one thing. This is for the Yeah, this is for the benefit of the students only. I was I was so strong-headed always that I have to finish this in one take. I cannot be one of those people who actually end up giving the GMAT for the second time. I had some kind of blockage in my mind, and when I got my first score, I was depressed mainly because of that, because I had set some standards for myself, and apparently those were not working.
So
But
now
what
that you think
everybody
of it,
needs
is
to
that right?
understand is, no, absolutely not. As you said, everybody has their own journey. I can't compare this journey with anybody else's journey and say that I've tried it for the second time and it only worked then. That's not correct to say, because everybody has their own skill set and their own good and bad time also. So you cannot be so stuck up on this one thing that I have to do it in one go or something like that,
I
unless
think
you
that's
have some
fair.
kind of
That's
restriction to it.
absolutely fair. And I think there's value to that. And a lot of people don't realize it. They kind of just kind of take that for granted. Let's talk about the quant course, right? So you were going through quant, you had a
Hmm.
good quant already. And let's now talk about the intangible,
Hmm.
the confidence factor of going into the exam. Going into
Hmm.
the exam, about I think 7 or 10 days before, you scored a Q45 on a Sigma X mock. And I know why you would say that,
Hmm.
the quant is harder. But then I came
Hmm.
back to you and said, Anand, hang on, it may be harder, but there are gaps that I
Hmm.
see in your learning that I want to kind of bridge, right?
Hmm.
And then I
Yeah.
got you access into the algebra trial as well, and you already had access to the number
Yes.
properties and geometry
Yes.
new course. So I just want you to talk about the value of actually doing this course the right
Hmm.
way and actually doing this course. You did the number properties course, you
Hmm.
did the geometry course, you even did the algebra course,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
What's the value in this new
Hmm.
quant course?
So honestly, here is where the some personal principles come into picture. I feel like if I'm doing a course, if I'm investing money and time and my energy, I should do it the right way. I will not just half-ass it and at the end try to blame every other factor which may or may not have worked. So when I joined the e-GMAT course, first of all, I was very skeptical, and I'm being very honest. I was very skeptical of joining the e-GMAT course, and this is something which a lot of students will, they might uh, they might have this in their minds right now. I always used to see so many success stories that at some point of time it started working against the brand image of e-GMAT. I thought there's something wrong. First of all, and that's reasonable to be that it's reasonable to be that cynical. And then at a few places I did read some negative reviews about the support team and about a few other points, right? Then what happened was I stumbled upon a review of some some Russian guy who had taken the e-GMAT course,
Valentine.
and he had also written. I don't remember. Yeah, I think so, Valentine. Yeah, I think so. And his review was rated one of the best GMAT Club reviews. And you know, I thought that this guy is definitely being genuine because he did say a couple of negative things about the technical support or some secondary aspects of the course. But he said that if you lack verbal skills, if you want to learn things in a very structured manner, then just blindly go for the course. And then what I did was I took a diagnostic, the free diagnostic test which is available on e-GMAT for sentence correction, and I scored horribly. And again, I was cynical. Again, I thought that maybe they're putting so many difficult questions that all students just want to take their course up. Then I thought, no, there in fact are conceptual gaps which I only come to know of when I'm done with the test. And this used to happen a lot of times, right? So when I did that, I got in touch with someone called Dhruv from your team
Yeah,
to just have a chat about a study plan or my future plans. And I explained to him my entire history, the amount of time, energy, and everything which I had spent already. And then he suggested that I can take a course on e-GMAT for both quant and verbal. Earlier, I was a bit skeptical of not of taking quant, but as you just mentioned, in fact, the access which you had given me to the new course worked very well, I think, for two reasons. One was in quant, I wasn't in a position where I had to start from scratch. I wasn't in a position. Neither did I have the time to go through every file, every theory file. I needed to and this is something which is beautifully covered in your stage wise approach. The beauty of it is that you can identify where you have to start from. Otherwise, if you don't have a mentor with you, you always throw blind shots, right? So now I knew that okay, in when you had seen my Q45 in my mock, and then you suggested me to take the algebra and geometry application files and the GMAT skills and process files. Yeah.
correct. Yeah.
So I immediately thought that the beauty of the the stage wise approach is that doesn't matter where you are in the course of your preparation. There is a set point where you can directly start from if if of course if you give a mock and somebody is there to analyze your mistakes. And I knew that geometry and algebra were two chapters which I had taken lightly. The new course I didn't do all the theory files, but I only did the process files, and I could see that after scoring bad, medium, I did go on to score good in the actual tests which were in the new course. So for those two courses, I'm definitely very confident that the students which specifically are very afraid of quant. I have friends who are very afraid of quant because uh, they've never touched it after they've left college. And for those people, this is going to come very handy. And my review for it is definitely a thumbs up.
Yeah. So basically, I think you mentioned, I think this is the best video testimonial ever for the course. I usually don't get such good testimonials. Uh, so here's the thing. I want to talk about the quant piece where you mentioned that even a person who's scared of quant will now want to get the quant course because it's as good as the verbal course now. So you have a lot of people talking about the new quant course
Hmm.
like they used to talk about the verbal course. So now you'd see reviews
Correct.
of people talking about the quant course. And for a student, it works for every kind of student. For you had to do the GMAT and process skill
Yes.
files because you had to bridge that gap. The intangible or the confidence
Hmm.
factor had to be built in.
Hmm.
And I wanted you
Yes.
to have that. And I fought for that as well. The second piece is for a student who's really not good. So he takes a diagnostic quiz, he figures out where he's at, and then if he realizes that he needs to go through the concepts, he does that. And then it's a very structured approach. You improve in a concept,
Hmm.
then you improve in the process, then you improve in the
Hmm.
application.
Hmm.
And it kind of builds up. And so the end of it, you're absolutely clear about algebraic expressions or lines and
Yes.
angles and stuff like that. So I think real value there. Let's talk about the verbal course also a little bit, even though you sold it really well. Um, I want to talk about very something about CR. I remember this mail that you had sent to me
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
I am good at CR, but I'm really struggling with hard level questions. How did you manage that? How did you?
Hmm.
What was the solution to that? Because a lot of people
I,
struggle with CR hard questions and
you know,
take very long
yeah.
on it.
Hmm. My weakness in verbal was CR. That was my biggest weakness. Even though my ESR for my first attempt suggested that my weakness is RC, I knew that my weakness is not RC. My weakness is CR. CR was something, after one point of time, I kept doubting myself if I apply the right logic to this entire word. Am I being logical in my daily life or not? Because I'm getting almost every hard question wrong. I'm stuck between two options, and I'm always choosing the wrong option. And how I simply couldn't, understand how that is possible. In fact, I remember Dhananjay, sometime back you had sent me a video testimonial of some girl who had scored really well. I don't remember her name
Arshita,
actually, but she said that CR was her strongest area. I really don't remember her name, but
okay.
she said that CR was her, she was very comfortable with CR. And I was like, oh my God, are there people like that who actually breathe through CR? I was very tensed about CR, honestly. And that was the core of my initial mails, which I had sent to you, to Dhruv. So basically, what I did with CR was I started going through the course, and I had to start from stage one. And for the students who don't know what stage one is, it's basically where you start with the theoretical aspects of what inference is, what evaluate is. Even if you think you know all of these concepts, I personally thought I knew everything, but I did find a lot of new things which definitely turned things around. And once I finished the theoretical part of it, the the best part was the application part, where I think you guys call it the cementing stage two,
Yeah.
basically, where you have to take cementing quizzes, and you have to reach a certain level. So that target in itself helps you drive you to that point where you definitely score more than 70% in medium level questions and 55% in hard level questions.
Let's
And
look at your account also.
when
So you
I
can keep
finished,
talking. We'll just look at your
yes,
account as well quickly. Let's just
Yeah.
log in here and see your account. So you can carry on talking. We'll just open your account and show students as
Yeah.
well what CR is
Yeah.
and what the stats are like. So for hard level questions, even though you thought you were struggling, your accuracy was
Hmm.
73%, right? And the beauty is
No,
this,
this
right?
this accuracy improved actually.
Yeah, this improved.
This
This improved was,
improved.
and you can see it here. You
Yeah.
can see it here. That's the beauty. That you can see in the last 30
Hmm.
attempts,
Hmm.
things changed for you drastically. And you can see the same thing for your timing, right?
Yeah.
You started off with a lot of
Oh my
times.
God, timing is one aspect. It's I think it carries 50% of weightage in terms of the mental stress which any student has.
Yeah.
Timing is something which you definitely need help with if you aren't finishing things on time. I
Okay, how do you
always used
fix
to
it?
think that let's
How do you fix it? So a lot of students
huh,
have this question. I take too
hmm,
long on questions. I can't solve it because of a timing
hmm,
constraint. I look at the clock and I blank
hmm,
out. Tell me, how
hmm,
did you fix it?
hmm. Okay, so before I actually do that, I'll just mention one small thing. There's a very famous book, CR Bible. It's called the
Yeah.
CR Bible, and then if you go on the preface of it, there's a very interesting study mentioned saying that if you do the first 10 questions correctly, spend more time on it, then definitely they had shown a graph that the score accuracy actually improves way more if you focus on the first block. And my timing issues were because of this strategy, because I used to take too long in the first 10 questions. I used to be like, I don't want to care about the last 5 or 6 questions, even if I mark any, let's say, the option E in all of those, maybe one or two will be right, and because they will be difficult level questions, I would have already achieved a certain stage, so it will be fine. So that was my issue with timing. Timing wise, actually, another big issue which I think you helped me out the most, uh, and I owe everything to you for that. Note making. Note making is something which is not talked about anywhere. Yeah, even if you go to GMAT Club, if you browse the entire YouTube content for GMAT, note making is something which is not talked about that often. And I understand why it is so, because it's a very personal thing, right? Because everybody takes notes differently. But the problem which I was facing was, I was making extensive notes. I was writing every after, for example, in RC, after every sentence, write a short summary. Every sentence, write a short summary. For CR, similarly, for every sentence, write a summary, and then pre-thinking, in the pre-thinking stage, I used to take my time. So I thought 3 minutes are fine for CR, and this was primarily because I thought that in SC I will be able to cover up, because in SC I never used to make notes, and that's something which I think is mostly universal. But in CR and RC, the day when I stopped making notes, the day when I started visualizing. I remember you specifically telling this to me repeatedly, that start visualizing, things will change drastically. Like, I used to finish before time, and the accuracy was more or less the same, and it slowly started increasing because I had more time to understand the meaning. What happens in note making is actually, Dhananjay, that you're so involved in making notes that somewhere the process of actually understanding the meaning is given low priority.
Because you're focused on
You think
writing
that, okay, if you put
and
this
not
down
really
in right.
comprehending, right?
Correct, correct, correct. Sometimes you're focused on, what symbol should I use for change, what symbol should I use for price. All of these things don't really matter if you have a timing issue. I think my personal suggestion to every student: give up note making, start visualizing. In fact, there's a webinar which I attended of e-GMAT. This was when I had access to that free
The live session
around
score, live
360.
session score. Yeah.
Yes. So I attended one webinar which was on visualization. And although it's not anything new, right? It's not something which is very, very new to all GMAT aspirants, but it's something very logical that you definitely need to make visualizations in your own mind rather than make extensive notes. So I think that worked out the best for me, and that's how I improved my timing drastically.
Perfect. I think that's great. And that's one piece of improving your timing. The second piece of you improving your timing was when I think you wrote to us after a while, and I don't reply to as many emails as I used to because I work with a lot of students like you now, and I handpick them. So I finally read your mail in the inbox again. I was like, Anant, I'm back. Hang on, let me just let me intrude here and let me figure out what's happening. And I said, let's get on a call. Let's get on a call and let's figure out what went wrong. And I spoke to you about test readiness, and a lot of people take this lightly on
Hmm.
what these test readiness aspects are.
Hmm.
So, uh,
Hmm.
what really helped you about that plan that I shared with respect to test readiness, and how did it help timing?
Putting yourself in uncomfortable situations. See, if you say that, if I'm going to put 10 questions, 20 minutes, that's comfortable for you. You can do it easily. That's not how the test day will be, right? Although the test will have those many number of minutes, but you have to, take a margin of some percentage of time which you will not be able to think about, right? That time will be gone, right? So I think this is something which you would you I think you already suggest to all of the students which you handle, that do the test readiness with less amount of time than actual time, because
And so, by the
that
way, some
creates
of them
a
listen
real
to me.
pressure.
Some of them listen to me, and some of them don't. Most of them who listen to me, kind of, it
Mm,
works for them. And I just want to point out to
mm,
everybody who will watch this that you're one of the most diligent students I've worked with. If I asked you to do something, you did it. There's trust there. There's faith there that this guy is actually telling me the right thing. In a lot of cases, that's never there
mm,
in itself, right? Now moving on to
mm,
the next point, I mean, test readiness is something that transitioned you into the mocks, right? And in the end, we spoke
mm,
about your mocks. You took three
mm,
mocks this time. You had fairly up and down
mm,
scores. We analyzed your mocks. And then I
mm,
think you were traveling
mm,
to Pune and you called me and said that, okay, I've taken this mock. I created that video for you as well, that video analysis.
mm,
And you said that I want to
mm,
talk to you about something.
mm.
Um, do you remember what I mentioned to you on that call, on that quick call?
This was the day before the
Yeah,
exam,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so I had taken the mock and I did not score that well. But even at that point of time, because I knew that I've done everything right according to what you guys have, told me. And that's what, that's what gave me confidence, that you said that you're on the right track, and that's what helped me out. I was like, okay, I just have to trust this guy. I just have to trust the situation, and I have to trust myself on what I've done, and I will get it. If I don't get it, of course it would have been really bad. But yeah, you have to be in a position to accept that. But just going back to what you were saying, Dhananjay, and this needs to be stressed. I'm not even if you're a sort of a rebel in real life, even if you protest all your life to different things, this is not where you want to be illogical enough to lie to yourself, right? That's very important. Oh, it's okay if you're even lying to your mentor, but don't lie to yourself. If you've not done something, then don't expect results out of not doing that thing, right? Because then you will try to blame the mentor, then you will try to blame the situation and everything. So all of that is just sympathy. All of that is something which you don't want to uh, see in future. And I think that's why it's so important to go by what the experts tell you. I simply gave up all control. I was like, let the strategy team of e-GMAT decide whatever the best thing is there for me, and that's the reason why I followed it to the T.
Yeah, I think that's exactly why you've done well as well. Obviously, whenever I say that you've done well, I always say it's 95% you and 5% us, maybe even 2% me. But I mean it. I mean it to the core because it takes more
Mm,
than just me helping you out to do well on an exam. I think people need to realize that there's
mm,
potential in themselves more than anything else, right? Um,
mm,
moving on from that,
Definitely.
I told you to do this warm-up exercise before the test. Did that help?
Yes, absolutely. This is something which I knew what you were talking about because I felt it in the first exam. In the first attempt, my mind was not primed, as you had mentioned in the email. My mind wasn't primed to face questions. In fact, I specifically remember that my mind started working by the end of the verbal section. That is why I breezed through quant, I breezed through IR and AWA. But that was very unfortunate, and I could have avoided that if I had done a good warm up, right? And of course I remember that on the call which we had the day before the actual mock, you had suggested me to do a short warm up exercise of so many questions of quant and so many questions of verbal. I didn't doubt that entire activity because I knew the importance of it. Some people, they might have a hard time thinking that, no, I'm already going to be so stressed in the exam, why do I need to stress myself before the exam? In fact, if you go and look at some GMAT Club reviews, I found this, one person had said that you don't want to be making a lot of decisions on the day or in which you are on which you are giving the exam. So before the exam, try to take as many less decisions as possible. But I knew that this was the mistake which I actually committed in the first exam, and I cannot do this again. I have to warm up enough before the actual mock so that things don't come very surprising to me.
And why do I know this? I've given the GMAT myself. Happened with me. If it happened with me, it's obviously happened with everybody else. So clearly, there's value to that. So again, you scored a 750. I'm very, very, very happy for you. Can't tell you how happy I am. What's the next step from here? Where do you go from here?
Uh, I plan to apply for the class starting in 2022. So I have time. I have time to apply for scholarships and for colleges. Mostly aiming for US MBA colleges. Uh, and earlier, I was actually also willing to go to Europe to some lower ranked colleges because I thought I might not get a good score. And being very honest, DJ. On the day when I was clicking the next button, I was like, I will be happy if there's just a seven number there. I don't really care what is after that. Just give me a 700 or above. And if you remember, in the first conversation which we had, I told you that my target is 730 plus. So, I had in fact lowered my standards for some reason, and that was because I had faced a setback. So, when of course I got the score, I was confident that I am confident that uh, the schools which I'm aiming at, I have a good chance of getting there.
Got it. I think with the 750, you're definitely looking at scholarships from a lot of schools in the states. One of ex-e-GMAT students has scored. I got a 740 and got about $210,000 in scholarships cumulatively. So you know the amount of scholarship you can get,
Hmm.
and that's the beauty of it. And never ever lower
Yeah.
your expectations because of your GMAT score. And you would imagine this and you would understand this now that the value of such a high GMAT score is really, really high on the market. And people want people with a
Hmm.
98th percentile score. So I mean, again, I'm gonna
Yeah.
keep talking to you about it because obviously my support will extend beyond just this engagement. I help a lot of students with giving them admissions consulting advice as well.
Uh,
So you would
Dhananjay, just
always,
just
yeah,
one small thing,
yeah.
yeah, one very small thing, and this is again for the students. Uh, I have no selfish motive because I'm done with the GMAT, but you know, don't say this to yourself that even if I get a lower GMAT score, it's going to be fine. Don't try to go into that defense mechanism because that will definitely work on your confidence. And even if you get a lower score, in fact, I was talking about this yesterday with a few friends. If I would have gotten a 710 or 720 in the first attempt, I would definitely not have given a second attempt, right? So my point is that aim higher. You can do it. but the main ingredients, you have to know what the main ingredients are, and you have to follow the recipe. That's all.
Got it. I think that's sage advice. Absolutely speaking like a ace test taker now. Very very nice talking to you, and I'm very very happy for your success. And you can always reach out to me for anything, right?
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot, DJ.
Thanks.